Hello and welcome to Pub Goth Transmission. Today we're going to talk about the proscription of Palestine Action as a terrorist organization, and then we're going to talk about Adam Curtis's new documentary Shifty. So I'm, as always, joined by my esteemed co-host Adam Jones. How the devil are you doing, Adam?
Not too bad. Started a new job, bullied an Israeli billionaire up the publishing industry. We all saw King Diamond the other day. We decided right that actually the support bands, who are not really a support band, they're just the band, Paradise Lost, are probably the premier pub goth band. Not just because they once got interviewed in Spoons, but really because they really don't care about being that goth. But they are too goth for the
But
pub.
they
So
are
we
anyway.
found an avatar.
They are so goth that they've never put any effort into it. It just be like that. Extremely pub goth. Yeah, and I mean, also, we've been loads of gigs recently. I went Guttural Slug. That was good. That was good fun. I went to Maiden last minute. Brilliant. Went to King Diamond. I'll stop doing that. I promise.
It's
Um,
fine. The system inherently filters out. Like it's not coming through right now. The system will not receive a king diamond.
yeah, it's probably like only the dogs, like people's dogs are freaking out now. And what was the other one? Death Clock. We saw Death Clock, and that was a lot of fun. Always on extremely hot days. Apparently, you're not allowed to go to a gig at the moment unless it's like at least
Mm.
33 degrees or something. And you just walk into the venue going, please have aircon, please have aircon, please have aircon, please have aircon, please have aircon. Fortunately, they mostly did have aircon, which was good.
Yeah, I saw Sex Trash and Sodomizer at the Black Heart, and I walked into the venue space, and the bar doesn't have aircon. The venue has aircon, and I was like, thank fuck.
Yeah, very necessary.
Sodomizer, pretty good.
I mean, we went to Brewdog just because it was a meeting spot for other people. I wouldn't pick it, and it had ostensibly had aircon. You could see it, but it wasn't working. Wasn't on, and that motherfucker was sweltering. But it's much easier to manage heat when you've got cold pints. That's the key top tip to beat the heat. Cold ones. But today I'm currently drinking this. I can recommend this. This is the Lef or Leffer, Nike or Nike, if you will. 0%. It's one of the better 0%ers. So I'd
Mm.
recommend that if you're trying not to consume alcohol at the minute, because I'm currently doing that. Apparently what the
Nice.
kids call California sober.
We got to pick up some California, actually. Damn it.
But yeah, anyway, so today first thing we're going to talk about is the proscription of Palestine Action. So they were, recently designated as a terrorist organization alongside the Maniac Murder Cult, a neo-Nazi group that put poison in children's sweets and hand them out to try and kill children, and the Russian Imperial Legion, who are basically these like neo-Nazi Russians who want to re-establish the Russian Empire, and there's a bunch of like nonces in there too. And then you got Palestine Action, who painted an aeroplane. So yeah, it's just fucking stupid, isn't it? Like, do you consider this a wild overreach? Do you think this is going to backfire?
I mean, people in the people in the actual security services have said it's going to backfire, and it already has, to the extent
Yeah,
that ultimately ultimately is kind of unworkable. Of course, whilst they can't arrest us all, they don't necessarily need to. They can just keep intimidating people. But I think at this point, most people are just fucking sick of this shit because they keep being told not to trust their lying eyes,
yeah,
and they can just see ultimately what's happening. And in terms of like where this prescription is going, I I don't think it's going to cause much of a demobilization. I think it is honestly just going to amplify things further, and it's going to proceed in the acceleration of the delegitimization of the British state, which,
yeah,
to some extent, is a good thing, but also it does mean, functionally, with a lot of movements now, we have a problem of how to reproduce ourselves. Now, what do I mean by that? What I mean by that is,
what do you mean by that?
prisoner support people who are burnt out and just can't do it all the time. Because there's such an urgency to everything we're doing, and there really is an urgency to stopping genocide, stopping all kinds of things, austerity, the assault on trans rights, that we can't have much time to sit back and try and recuperate our ability to keep doing different kinds of actions, different kinds of, organizing, different kinds of all of just the fucking meetings and admin that goes into this fighting this stuff, as small as we are.
On top of
And
everything else that we have to do, like
it's fucking exactly because it's all in people's free time. There are very few paid organizers,
there's very little
and
free
to this
time.
extent, it's just going to break. Eventually, people are just going to break and say, "Well, fuck you, fuck this, fuck that." We're just going to still support them anyway. I mean, I'm not to say this, 'cause I'm a basically, I do public leftism stuff for a fucking living, so, I'm already going to get picked up anyway. Probably not. They're not really going to come for podcasters. I'm not really on their radar. But, I mean, I was at one of the demos in Trafalgar Square protesting about the attempt at prescription before the prescription actually came in, and people were pretty defiant. People did not give a shit. There was the kettling of police up against buses. People did declare that they were going to save their energy for other things, for taking down the actual thing, because the main point of Palestine Action is to take. They're not the story. They know they're not. The story is disrupting logistics that send weapons over to occupy Palestine that the Zionist entity is using to commit its genocide. But there is a real problem of how to reproduce ourselves, how to keep ourselves going, but at the same time, people are just at this point to say, fuck it. Like, if the barrier has stayed... The barrier has not stayed the same. Like, we haven't broken the rules, but they have now bent them around us. And so we can say, well, in that case, if we can't say this, can't say that, we might as well just fucking say it.
Yeah, well,
because it's so obvious.
This is something that I was thinking as well. There's like, maybe it will have a chilling effect in some regard, but there's also people who are going to go, well, if I get potentially like 14 years in prison for painting a plane, then, and I get, that's terrorism now, I might as well actually do some fucking terrorism if I'm going to get, if that's the hammer that's going to come down on me either way.
Voicing support for Palestine Action could technically come to that, although in reality, given previous sentencing, so I'm just looking at some lawyer comrades who have looked at this, it is more like 2 to 3 years, given the history of sentencing.
But even
to
still,
say that it's 14 years is technically correct, but it is that we don't want to amplify that too much because that's more of a scare tactic.
Yeah, no, yeah, yeah, true. But it just seems like it's if they're going to bring such a heavy hammer down on people for painting a plane, some people are going to reason, well, I might as well actually do some real fucking shit. If they're going to come after you for real for symbolic action, you might as well do something for real. I'm not advocating anything, officer. I'm just, it's kind of fucking obvious, isn't it?
It's like, but it's going to backfire.
It reminds me of something that you said before, which is that like the media class and the political class are kind of in this feedback loop with themselves and absolutely nowhere near reality or anyone else. Like anyone sitting in a pub anywhere in this country and overhearing conversations knows that what they're doing is completely fucked. And in every pub right now, they're going, even people who don't like them are going, that seems a bit much, doesn't it? Seems a bit stupid. Like, it's so deeply out of touch that it shows you just how fucking psychotically high they are on the smell of their own farts at this point. That, like, they still are in... Because, like, the fact of the matter is that when you talk about this whole issue, there's this bubble of completely mental self-deluding Zionists, and there's everyone else at this point. And the media and political class are caught up in the former. But what they're going to do, it's going to backfire because it's just so out of step with any of our shared realities, even just a normal bloke in the pub.
And it's partially to do with them wanting to bend their ass backwards for the fucking Americans. Sorry, the Septics. No offense to our American comrades, but, Septics. And at the same time, these people, the Labour government in particular, I mean, they've always been big fans of data. We'll get into this later. Like focus groups, reports, turning
ID card
democracy into a manageable process that can be turned into a separate set of data, set of like information that can inform policy. And it's now gotten so up its own arse that Morgan McSweeney is now using AI focus groups. So focus groups that don't have people in them.
Yeah.
So it's just, okay, you need to inform me in a way that I decided beforehand how to do my job. But he sells himself as a big, like pro whisperer. He understands voters. Why? Because he understands data about voters. So why? Because he understands a simulated copy of that data fed into an average generated through a machine that hallucinates. So what
Something,
he's looking at
something's
is a
on
copy
Bojo.
of a copy of a copy. It's just pure fucking Baudrillard the Matrix shit. And but Baudrillard thinks the real has kind of disappeared. We can't verify it. There's one thing we
Yeah,
can verify. People fucking hate Labour. On
yeah,
every side of every conversation, of every political spectrum, people fucking hate them and want them to fuck off. And
yeah.
so they will.
Well, they've done the things. I genuinely think, like the Democrats and Republicans have had pretty solid regime recently of like being the right and left hand of the same system. The Republicans move up one way, they cause outrage. The Democrats normalize it. They come in, they do more shit. The Democrats normalize it. But I feel like Labour went too hard. Like they literally just went, like the Conservatives and Labour, they just went, and they just became the same fucking thing. And they went too hard. There's supposed to be some daylight that the average person can see between the two of you, other than just a fucking color. Because what is it true? Like the Conservatives had the crime and policing bill, and then like Labour brought in. Oh, ours is called like the sorry, not the the crime and police. Ours is called the policing and crime bill, or something like that. And it was just the same fucking bill. And it's like you're supposed to appear to be different. It doesn't just mean the fucking color of your tie, mate. Like they're not doing a very good job of maintaining this faux democracy duopoly. You know what I mean?
But Labour's strategy is really mostly informed by a comment that Peter Mandelson,
Yeah.
friend of Jeffrey Epstein, Peter Mandelson, Lord Mandelson, said a while ago, which is the left have nowhere else to go, and so they'll just vote Labour anyway. And so, given that the left are never going to leave the Labour Party, therefore they can just court the right, because anyone to the left of the right is going to have nowhere else to go but them. So they've just been
Go to the fucking
chasing
pub,
the
mate.
yeah, they've been chasing
I'm gonna go
far
to the
right
polling
voters, by
station.
which they mean also by far right voters they mean newspapers, they mean what newspaper people think, what newspaper columnists and editors think, so people who aren't working class by definition. And so they've just sort of run that into the wall because they are treating government like a media management operation, and they have not to sort of foreshadow the thing we'll discuss later. They have given away all of their power to the city, the bond markets, and newspapers, and also whatever data platform showed them. So when Lewis Mosley, grandson of Oswald Mosley, head of the British Union of Fascists, says that Keir Starmer quote unquote gets AI, because Lewis Mosley is the head of Palantir, the company that is called that its logo is literally the Palantir, the stone that Saruman uses to see the fucking hobbits, and its
Maybe
motto
if you're
is
not if
software
you're
that
not,
dominates.
I did not know that, but yeah, if you're not familiar with Lord of the Rings, they called themselves Evil Surveillance Corp, basically, in Lord of
Yes.
the Rings speak.
Yeah, and their slogan is software that dominates, and the UK version is run by the head of the the grandson of the head of the British Union of Fascists, and they run the NHS now, sadly,
And I have
and a lot of
first-hand
local councils.
experience that they called their data storage platform Foundry, which, at least to me, suggests that they see data as a weapon, which is a little bit
Because they
nefarious.
do.
Somebody who works in data and has to kind of use it.
Software that dominates, they call it that. And so Labour like already get their program because they believe in the same thing, which is we will essentially use information or simulations of information, not even information directly, which can also be a simulation, to crack down on anything that interrupts the smooth flowing of the British state, so we can invest in whatever we think the people want, and what the people want is what the data tells us it wants, which is what the people who own the data platform tell us it wants, which is newspaper columns, whatever Palantir want, whatever the data says us, and whatever investors want. So turns out the working class were all billionaire investors all along.
Who would have
Now,
thought?
naturally, this is bollocks. And so they've hit a brick wall, and so the only people left to offer anything are the two left parties, which is the Greens and the indefinite, whatever the fuck it is, coming out of Corbyn and Sultana. Hopefully they sort it out, but so far they haven't. Or Reform, who are just promising, we're going to bring back World War II so you can feel like virilely and happy, and your bins will be great, and we'll get rid of everyone who isn't like you. And it's just rural bullshit, basically.
Yeah, and also Farage himself, he positions himself as, this man of the people, whatever. He can look convincing as a farmer, but he's a city wanker. He's a city wanker. He doesn't even like beer. But
He's never pulled a pint in his life.
He might have done for a photo op, and he probably made it look convincing. He's a good fucking actor. He's good at what he does, but he's not. He's just another fucking charlatan. The Green Party as well, like they're caught between reactionary NIMBYism and
Mm.
progressive politics. They speak out of both sides of their mouth.
I
So
do
they're not
like
really
Zach Polanski though. He does talk a fair bit of sense. God, that sounded too pubby. That did. I did meet him very briefly once. I'm not going to join the Green Party. I don't believe in electoralism, but he does seem to have his head screwed on. I think some sort of coalition could happen between him and the New Left Party in terms of electoral stuff. But naturally, as a member of the British Left, we will fuck it. So I'm going to sit in my armchair and see what happens.
Yeah, fair enough. I mean, do we have anything else that we want to discuss on the proscription of Palestine action? One thing I would say is I heard from, I think, Asa Winstanley from the Electronic Intifada said at the time
Mm.
the proscription was kind of, is that triple mango, by the way?
No, it's a different pod. I don't use disposables, but I don't see you have like pods in them you
Because I've
can
got
put
one
back
of them.
in.
I still have one of them from the weekend. It
Mm.
makes me want to go grab it and have a little waft on it. I try and avoid them, but apparently they around the time the proscription was being before it had gone through,
Mm.
Palestine Action had something like 1,000 people trying to join in response. So yeah, this is going to be
Well,
a tremendous
you
back.
can now join a new organisation that's also sabotaging Israeli logistics in the UK, called Yvette Cooper.
Yeah, love that, love that.
And hopefully Yvette Cooper won't be subscribed because you can't voice support for Yvette Cooper without of course risking 14 years in prison. So I mean, hopefully Yvette Cooper gets prescribed.
Yvette Keeper was good, but couldn't they have called it the Labour Party?
Yeah, but that would still have the carrot and stick of it being about Labour.
No, Yvette Keeper is funnier.
Plus, there's a chance of alongside that of getting Ed Balls prescribed as well.
Yeah. Well, anyway, so the other thing we want to talk about, if you may be aware, if you like the same sort of shit that we like, there's a new Adam Curtis documentary series out called Shifty. How would you describe what it's about in a nutshell?
So Shifty is, again, as typical for Adam Curtis, a collection of archival footage about Britain from the 1970s up until the first Blair government. So let's say 1970, maybe 1969 to about 1998, 1999 maybe. Just up till the turn of the century,
I'd say
ending
it
on a
goes
big
more
conclusion
from
about the
like
internet.
78, 79. It's like late 70s
Yeah.
till early 2000s. Like
Yeah,
maybe
true. It's just
78 to
before Thatcher.
2002, kind of.
Mm.
Yeah.
And it covers sort of the deindustrialization of Britain, the move towards financial services, and particularly the move towards individualism. The move towards a society that thinks that it's meant to satisfy desires of individuals, that collectivity is fundamentally a myth, and that ultimately all politicians are fundamentally self-interested, and therefore there is the concept of public service, concept of collective action, is fundamentally a mystification, fundamentally wrong, because no one can serve the collective, because everyone is self-interested. And so it's a complete de-alignment of self-interest and collective interest, and a complete effacement of the possibility of collective interest and therefore collective action.
And also, there's lots of old school footage of like metalheads bopping about and bits and pieces.
Yeah, there's a lot of Ozzy Osbourne in there for
There's
some
a lot of
reason.
Ozzy Osbourne in it. It's trying to catch a vibe, and it is quite nostalgia baity, but I think
Mm.
it's supposed to be relatable because it's almost like fucking. But a lot of it's like watching fucking Gogglebox. It's like watching Gogglebox in like fucking 1989 or something because you'll be watching some old footage of some people watching TV and just saying whatever's going on. And I find it interesting. It, in a way, reminds me of if you've ever seen the Seven Up documentary series, where they film the same kids every
Mm.
7 years, where you notice a lot of things change, but you also notice a lot of things stay the same. It's like, in a
Mm.
way, I'm like, oh wow, things have changed, but on the other hand, I'm like, no, it's for me at least, it hasn't really changed that much. Like, and I like the fact that because there's a lot of this kind of intimate footage of just random shit basically happening throughout the ages. There's like footage of like a house party in Kentish Town, and there's just like footage of like all just random kind of shit. It'll be like I forget which one it is. There's a clip of like I think it's the house party in Kentish Town, and then the next shot is like the assembly line of a crisp factory and just stuff like that, which is just very Adam Curtis's kind of juxtaposition of all these kind of scenes, just to kind of cultivate a vibe. But what I did like about this one in particular is that I found I related to a lot of characters, just random people that I saw in it doing things. You know, I think it's trying to speak to, maybe it's because of my age. Like, I'm a little bit younger than, you know, I wasn't born in 1979. I was born in end of 1994. But particularly towards the tail end, but even in the early stuff, because shit doesn't change that quickly. At least it didn't back then. I could definitely see myself in a lot of these characters and had a lot of similar and relatable experiences. Even the shit with the metalheads and stuff, it's old school, but we've been at a lot of places that are not too far from that, if you know what I mean. You know, it's not far. It's not too far away from a scene of us at the Black Heart or at the Dev or something. You know what I mean? Like a lot of those kinds of scenes and stuff and house party footage. So I did like how I found it quite very relatable. I kind of like how it kept focusing specifically on Britain, kind of keeping the. I felt that it was a much tighter subject matter. You could say trauma zone, but this even more so because a lot of Adam Curtis documentaries was like. I actually rewatched The Power of Nightmares recently, which has aged well in some ways and poorly in others, where he's like trying to weave this line between Sayyid. It starts with like Sayyid Qutb in like Egypt, and then talks about the Straussians in America and the emergence of neoconservatism and like radical Islam, whatever. And actually, even that's one of the titles. But some of his documentaries, if you know what I mean, they're like you're in Soviet Russia and then you're in like Mozambique, and it's like it's weaving these kinds of stories, but through very like disparate, heavily juxtaposition images from like different parts of the world, which is his kind of style. But I kind of like how this one sticks to Britain and has a much tighter like. It just felt a lot more cohesive in many ways, which I liked.
Yeah, I mean, this is the second Adam Curtis documentary without a voiceover for one.
Which I did not like because you have to watch the screen the whole time. If you want to like roll a cigarette, you have to look away from. You know, you have to pause it because you look away from the screen and you've missed the text of what it says the thing is. So, like, I was thinking about this before. Like, I'd be quite tempted because I will probably rewatch it to actually just record myself doing an impression of Adam Curtis reading the text and then edit it and just put my version of Adam Curtis's voiceover over it. Like, I think if it would be good, like, if I can be asked, it'd be good if people could do that. If he's going to keep doing this, it's not hard. It's not hard to do an Adam Curtis impression.
Well, the thing is about doing an Adam Curtis impression is that Adam Curtis sounds like Keir Starmer, but Keir Starmer does not believe what he is saying.
Yeah.
Adam Curtis believed individualism was a destructive force in the West, and it led to politicians giving away their power. No. So the thing is with Keir Starmer, Mr. Speaker, I believe we have to exterminate every single person who doesn't like me. But Mr. Speaker, like you have to with Keir Starmer, you have to say things a little bit of a stutter, because Keir Starmer does not believe a word he is fucking saying. He's a little bit like Alan Partridge.
Believed in something different. Margaret Thatcher believed that the economy could only be kept afloat by sacrificing at least 17 small children to the sun god Ra each year. She learned these theories from Friedrich Hayek, who was a philosopher from Austria. Now, I can't do a very good impression of it, but
yeah, because you were sacrificing children to Jimmy fucking Savile, not Hayek.
Yeah, true. But yeah, what would you say overall? What did you think of it? Do you think it was good? Do you think it was shit?
I quite liked it. I think my problems with it is it constantly treats politicians like they're more stupid than they are, and they are often stupid. But with Thatcher, he treats Thatcher and monetarism and that whole Thatcherite shift as if it was an attempt at changing British society which went wrong rather than one that went right. I mean, at one point he does interview an advisor to Thatcher who says basically, I'm not a Marxist, but one might say that this is a crisis of capitalism and that it's been manufactured by the financial sector in order to take money and power away from the working classes by destroying the industrial basis of British society, and therefore they've got no jobs they can organise around, such that if they struck at those jobs, if they went on strike, they would therefore have leverage over the British state. But whilst he flirts with that idea, Curtis is clearly editing it to say that actually he thinks that Thatcherites just had a bad theory of money and they applied it and it accidentally went wrong and destroyed the country. Whereas I think it's clearly a class-based. I mean, I think Thatcher was actually quite a class-conscious politician, just on the other side. I don't think that they're as stupid as we think they are. Now, to be fair, Keir Starmer is genuinely stupid because he has no basis on which to verify political reality other than support from the paper, support from the media, which is how he got in the first place. Essentially, similar to Boris. As soon as, I mean, they sat on the whole Partygate thing until it was useful to them. And as soon as Boris stopped being useful to the billionaire class that owned the press, then they turned on him. So, I mean, Starmer's an idiot, but he's an entirely predictable idiot to the extent that he's getting his information from one source and one source only. Whereas at least Thatcher, because she was capitalising upon sort of the collective consensus of British society, the fact that people did believe in some basic things to be true and right, then she could use that collective capacity to mobilise people. Whereas Starmer can mobilise no one, because to quote the movie The Thing, no one trusts each other anymore and we're very tired.
Yeah, but I don't disagree with you, but I don't. I mean, we've talked about this before on the episode that we did about money. The question of, are they stupid or are they evil, or more accurately, are they in on it or are they useful idiots? And I think you can drive yourself insane sometimes. I mean, you can drive yourself insane sometimes trying to figure out what it is, because, like you say, they are stupid. But are they that stupid? And I think it's irrelevant at the end of the day. I don't think you have to. You don't have to know whether Thatcher was genuinely some ideologue monetarist who thought that she could achieve a prosperity for everybody, or if she was this cynical, knew that this was going to do exactly what she wanted, or whatever. I think you could also say it's more complex. Maybe she was this ideologue, useful idiot, but because she had biases against, basically she didn't give a shit about what she did because she didn't care about those people and kind of wanted it to happen anyway, that she was just like, whatever. And would move reality around everything to make sure, oh no, monetarism is real. It's like, how Einstein discovered that the universe kept expanding, but he couldn't accept that conclusion, so he invented like the universal constant or something, and so eventually he just had to accept it. It's like that. I mean, I think they're not always entirely in on it, or entirely useful idiots. I think they're capable of different levels of self-delusion, believing whatever's written down on the piece of paper in front of them and then believing something completely different the next day. Then you got people like Donald Trump who are just completely different animals, where like their concept of reality is just like something they can just mold in front of themselves, if you know what I mean. And but
Trump's a different creature. I mean,
yeah,
so
exactly.
the CEO has morphed in the past 40 years. I mean, so at least in under the sort of the post-war consensus, there was the ability somewhat to say no to capital on a domestic level.
Yeah.
Of course, the deal post-war was you got, Clement Attlee brought in the NHS, but he got to drop Agent Orange on people in Malaya. So there was that kind of deal of you get some domestic welfare, we get to continue the empire.
And we had to
But
sacrifice dental care for some of that.
yeah, to join the Korean War. But when it comes to the CEO today and
Fuck.
someone like Donald Trump,
Thanks,
like
Clement Attlee, you cunt.
he's a fucking cunt. I think Starmer is just like Attlee, yeah. So he's someone who looks for a class compromise but doesn't need to give one, and then just also bombs the shit out of everyone in the British periphery of the empire, which includes fucking Gaza. But yeah, I mean the CEO. I mean I've dealt with CEOs before, and they are fantastic creatures because they're creatures who have been cultivated in an environment where they haven't heard one word ever, right? And that word is no. Like, if you have so much money, you can command so much capital, you can just keep hiring and hiring more precarious people in a worse job market to do whatever you pay them to do, you will not hear the word no. You believe that you can shape reality around you. And of course, eventually you just hit a brick wall of reality says no, fuck off. But at least, like, previously, the British bourgeois at least had some reason to feel scared, whereas now the bourgeois are just scared of what they see on their phones, which is what they're all paying
Yeah.
for. I mean, Musk is also a creature of Twitter. He's not the owner. He's not just the owner of it. He doesn't control Twitter. He owns it, he doesn't control it, because he is a creature made of that sort of informational addiction where he has nothing else to do but stare at his fucking phone all day. Because the only time he ever hears no is when he gets divorced.
Yeah.
Like, these creatures have not heard
Or
no, and so they have no limitations.
his children
They have
transition.
exactly big fucking ups. Like,
Big the
so
ruddy heck up.
it's why they go so fucking insane when as soon as anything pushes back against them. In an environment where there is no counter lever to this power, it will just masturbate itself into complete schizophrenia.
Yeah. No, I get you. I get you. I get you. Oh, by the way, back to Shifty. One trigger warning, I have to say. There is a bit, I think, in the second episode where police interrogators are talking to somebody reporting a rape. And if you're anything like me, you might try and reach through the computer to fucking throttle the cunts because it's one of the most anger-inducing, infuriating pieces of footage I've ever seen in my goddamn motherfucking life. I just seeing red during that whole thing. Just absolutely. I was like, these cunts are probably still alive. I'm going to find out where they live. Like this woman is basically reporting being raped, and they basically just say, "Are you sure it happened? I don't think it does. I think you're making it up. I think you're wasting our time. Why are you wasting our time? Why are you being so silly about this? I mean, if you obviously wanted it, when did you last have sex with your boyfriend? You obviously wanted it. You're just call the whole thing off. Why are you talking about this?" And it like literally, I was just wanted to like if I find out where those people live today.
The police have always fucking been like this, and it's
No, you
so
know
fucking
it's bad when you
infuriating.
actually see this footage of it, and they let it be filmed. They let that. If they let that be filmed, then what? Like, you know what I mean?
I mean, this is the whole thing. Like, oh yeah, people saying, oh yeah, the grooming gang scandal was because the police were somehow too sensitive to their own racism, so they let quote unquote Asian grooming gangs molest white girls. Like, fuck off. The police have never been so fucking sensitive. They would only ever let this sort of stuff go on if they did let it go on because they were getting fucking bribes or because they saw the victims as working class people and therefore lower than the shit on their own fucking shoes. They have never believed rape victims ever. Rape victims I know have never gone to the police because all you do is get fucking re-traumatized again and treated like a fucking criminal anyway.
One thing I do
Like,
want to say, if
there's
you're the sort of person saying, "Why don't they report the rape? Why don't they report it to the police?" Watch this fucking clip. Watch this episode of it. Watch this fucking clip and understand why they don't go to the motherfucking Benchard pigs.
they never got they never got what came to them after fucking Sarah Everard, and they just
Yeah,
fucking slam people to the ground.
yeah,
Like, don't look for fucking consensus or any kind of any kind of conscience on these people because they fucking have none.
yeah. It's like
They will do. They'll say, "Oh, they won't do that." Well, they're doing it.
I remember being so outraged by Child Q, like being genuinely so horrified and outraged. And then I
Can you
read a
unpack what child Q is? People don't know what child
Oh,
Q
sorry.
is.
Child Q was a young girl who was strip searched in her school because apparently they thought she had marijuana. And these two police officers came in and strip searched them and obviously traumatized the ever living fuck out of them and left them fucking suicidal because that's basically sexual assault. I'm not a fucking lawyer, but it is though, isn't it? You're fucking grabbing someone. I don't give a shit what reason you think it's for. You're still fucking grabbing somebody in their fucking vulnerable regions. It's completely fucked up. It's rapey bullshit. And like the only fucking trolley problem hypothetical bullshit circumstance where you think maybe it's if there's like credible evidence that they have a fucking nuclear warhead or something. Anything shy of that, like fuck off. And then I read a study that said over like the last 5 years, there's been about 1,000 strip searches of children by police. That it was not in any way an isolated incident. That's actually pretty fucking routine. Yeah, just fuck the pigs, innit? Fuck the pigs.
I
Hate them.
encourage our listeners to Google what happened to the first few Metropolitan Police officers to go into London.
I've not Googled that. I'm going to Google that after. I look forward to that.
Happened around the Isle of Dogs. Everyone was acquitted.
We love.
Although he won't be acquitted anymore because juries do have the right to acquit people by their conscience. But if you
Yeah,
inform juries of that right, you will get arrested
yeah, I've
because
heard of it.
that's cheating. Like pointing like following the rules, that's not cheating. But pointing out the rules where actually the government might not get what it wants, that's actually cheating. That's not fair. Like you can't inform people as
It's
to
just
their
not.
rights
It's not
because
cricket.
then that's just it's not cricket. It's not cricket, you know. Like that's not fair. Like, oh, you had to go and point out that maybe they can do this.
Yeah. Anyway, we've discussed fuck the pegs. I think we've covered that one
Mm,
off neatly. Another bit that I really enjoyed from Shifty was in the last. I really liked the last episode, maybe because it's like creeping into bits that I remember,
mm.
and the whole like Tony Blair, the whole thing about the Millennium Dome. I thought was just so it was so funny. It was like a parody of itself, and they're like, "We'll have a wall, and it will say Spirit," because I vaguely remember the Millennium Dome. Like my memory of the my memory of the fucking O2 was was basically it being this big thing that people were excited about, and then it just became a huge white elephant. That's where I learned the term white elephant was from the Millennium Dome, and then obviously it became the O2. And quite honestly, I always thought it was fucking ugly. I think it's fucking ugly now. I think it's fucking ugly then. It's a fucking ugly design. I hate it. It's ugly. But then I look back like and I vaguely remember some of the shit that was in the Millennium Dome. I feel like I remember people in school saying they went or something like this would be like
The
2000,
giant boy.
and they had all this like giant foam shit. It's creepy and fucking weird, but not in like a cool David Lynch way. Just in a like, it's just this is this.
Mm,
That was kind of. I feel like this is the
mm,
beginning of like, oh, Britain's gonna be cool now and do cool stuff. Like imagine like when we were
mm.
cool when we had the empire, and that's what they come out with, like a wall that
The
says.
new Labour government believe that they present their vision for a new Britain within the Millennium Dome.
And do you
But
know?
sadly, that was a fantasy.
Yeah, I mean, literally, but do you know what it really reminded me of? It reminded me of the episode of Peep Show. I don't know if you've seen it, but when Mark has to present Project Zeus, the merger between like sales and insurance or whatever, and he's just like, "This is what I've got for Project Zeus." It's just a blank piece of paper. He's like, "I've got nothing. I've got to go in there and I've got nothing." Like that's what the fucking Millennium Dome was like. Come on, Britain. What are we gonna be? We're gonna be like we're gonna 2000 new millennium Britain. We're gonna be like we're gonna yeah, and new millennium Britain. Come on, let's go. We're gonna new millennium Britain. Here we go. It's it's like it's a whole it's 2000s now. It's gonna new millennium Britain. That was basically it, right? And yeah, do you know what? The only good thing about New Millennium Britain was Bruce Dickinson rejoining Iron Maiden, and
Mm.
Bob was a sick
It,
album.
I genuinely think the Millennium Dome. 'Cause I remember it vaguely when I was a kid, and I remember it being based. I used to think of it basically as like an extension of the Science Museum, just a place full of weird shit.
Yeah.
And I never went there. I never really went there as a. Actually, I might have went there once. I've been too young to fucking remember it. But it was just a place full of weird shit. And as Curtis unpacks it, like the people put together had no idea what they're putting in it because they have no idea. Not to go full Mark Fisher, they've got no idea of the
No, go
future.
on, go full
Because
Mark Fisher for the
well,
fan.
what? Okay, so what is Britain? Let's just say, what is Britain's an entity? It's got nothing to do with the people living in it because they don't give a shit. It's got nothing to do with industry because they don't give a shit. It's got nothing to do with culture because they don't give a shit. What Britain is and what Britain was so the English were doing an imperialism. They were doing their own empire, their own trading routes. Britannia rules the waves, all that bullshit. And the Scots tried doing that in New Caledonia, and they fucked up. They were not colonized, despite the fact they keep fucking moaning about it. They were not colonized. So they made it. The Scottish ruling class made a deal with the British ruling class, saying, "We can't do an empire anymore, but if we join ourselves with you, you front the money, and we become your imperial administrators." Scottish people, the Scottish ruling class, were overrepresented in the British Imperial administration. So basically, they got the English to provide the capital, and they became one of the main administrator classes. So what Britain is a cartel of the British and Scottish ruling classes to take over as much of the rest of the world as possible. Now, they can't do that anymore. 1997, the handover of Hong Kong. We've got a few overseas territories. We've got Gibraltar and the Falklands, and that's about it, and a few other spare little islands here and there. So the project that is Britain is kind of dead, apart from just leasing whatever the City of London can give us to do financial imperialism overseas. And so there isn't really a point to Britain as an entity anymore. There's no fucking point to
I
it
liked it better when we
whatsoever.
were like a petro state, but for wool.
Exactly. Like there is literally no fucking like the point of Britain. These islands used to be was we were the last place you would get to that has enough bank space where you can drop your shit off before going to America. And then we became an imperial superpower, and then we became sort of financial superpower. But roughly, most of this country works for a small part of itself, which has no fucking point of existing. So when it came to the Millennium Dome, what Britain was going to be in the next century, they had no ideas other than just whatever seemed to be kind of cool at the time. So headsets, science, people of different backgrounds, creeds, all coming together to work for something. And that something is completely gone. So currently, what the purpose of Britain is selling weapons to other places, because Thatcher kept that industry. We guess why, and making sure that Murdoch gets what he wants, making sure that people that went to the same few private schools get what they want, and keeping a triple block pension so that Brenda and Gary can go on infinite saga cruises. Not the poor old people, though. They get to freeze to death every winter. So the point of Britain is fuck you, rich people get what they want.
Yeah. I mean, we got roasts.
We got well. Are we gonna have fucking roasts anymore? I mean, we're already destroying the fucking planet enough that maybe we don't. I don't know. I mean, maybe is the point of Britain and no genocide in the Middle East? That seems to be most of it.
Note to self: raise chickens.
You'd never kill them.
I know that's
You
the
feel
worst
too
part.
bad.
I know. I would feel too bad. I'd feel terrible.
Then you'd have fucking sick chickens. So you know.
I would just keep them to fertilize the crops. Speaking of crops, I did harvest some carrots today, and I'll be showing that on the little Instructable. Planted them earlier on in the year. They're a bit deformed, but lovely. So yeah. But yeah, I was thinking, right, we were talking about the Millennium Dome. What do you think, though, to counterpoint that? Because you could come up with a counter argument and say, oh yeah, but we really sorted it out a few years later, because then we did London 2012 and we had that opening ceremony and that was all great. Like, because people seem to like that. I don't really think it was very good. Like, I don't think it was bad, but like, I mean, I'm not that interested in Olympic opening ceremonies, to be honest.
Opinion columnists loved it. People on the BBC panel shows loved it. The people that were forced out of Stratford didn't fucking love it. You know. I
No.
mean, the Olympic opening ceremony one was all nostalgic, which was about the NHS, the Industrial Revolution, and of course only history is written by the winners, which means fucking survivors, because I mean it's built on fucking plague pits, that place, and built on the built on the graves of many working class people whose descendants were forced out of that area. I mean. Danny
And
Boyle, who directed it, also thinks Britain is a fucking cult. If you've seen 28 years later, and of course at the
I haven't seen
Paralympics,
it yet. Don't ruin it for me.
it's really good. But also another thing, at the Paralympics at the same stadium, George Osborne was there, and he was booed because that man has killed literally hundreds of thousands of disabled people.
On the
And so
topic of booze, very
yeah,
briefly, can I just give a brief shout out to all the people who were at Black Sabbath's last show and booed David Draymond when he showed up on stage? Big up to all of those people.
big up all those people. You should have booed fucking Sharon, though, shouldn't you? And Ozzy, because
It's
Ozzy
going
sided with the
Golden State.
statement.
Yeah,
No,
give
but
Ozzy a pass because he clearly has no fucking clue where he is, and he's just being like given a fucking teleprompter.
oh, all right. But yeah, good. Big ups booing David Draymond. Tom Rello, what are you doing?
What is Tom Rello
But
doing?
yeah, well, he was one of the people curating it. So I'm like, what's David Draymond doing there?
Yeah,
I mean,
no, fair enough. I don't know that much information about it. I just saw clips of people booing David Draymond.
I got. I'm kind of a little. I mean, look, maybe it's just me expecting everything to be too political, but it shouldn't be. Like, the big metal acts have really been kind of silent for how bad the world's getting.
Of course they have, because like metal is full of like centrist.
Well, it's not. Even at like the really expensive Black Sabbath gig, people think David Draymond is a cunt.
Yeah,
Like
true.
even then, the most expensive cut-off like international like Black Sabbath gig, where there's literally apartheid like tickets of like getting closer to the stage or not, people
Yeah,
still think that bomb signing bastard should fuck off.
yeah. No, that's a fair point. Yeah.
Like I mean, even like Glastonbury, it's a bunch of fucking poshos.
Anyway, back on topic. At the Paralympics, they booed George Osborne, and that was good.
Mm.
You love
Whereas
it.
these days, disabled people will be a prescribed group.
Yeah, pretty much. Like,
Actually, aren't they basically a prescribed group?
you bet you can get 14 years of pushing someone in a wheelchair these days. If you put a ramp in,
Mm,
get in a lot of trouble there.
yeah, Sharon Osbourne wouldn't like it. Like. But yeah, the Black Sabbath. I mean, I do regret the fact I never saw Black Sabbath.
Did you
But
never
there's
see it?
some. I've never saw them.
So I said that in a really cunty way now, and
Yeah, yeah. So I never. I saw Ozzy. Saw Ozzy
yeah, I never
Ozfest.
saw Ozzy, so I saw him in Black Sabbath, but not him doing solo stuff. When did Ozzy play?
Yeah. Oh god, when was it? It was Ozfest at the fucking Millennium Dome.
Ozfest at the Millennium Dome. What year was that?
Oh my god, when was this? Ozfest
He must have been 3 years
London.
old.
I was about 14.
You
This
about
was this was 15 years ago. I was 13.
in 2010. I didn't know there was an Ozfest in 2010.
So
Um,
who played Ozfest? I remember. So it was the second stage had Paradise Lost playing, but I didn't fucking know who they were at the time.
no, I don't think
So
I did either.
who
No,
I so the main stage it was Skindred,
yeah,
who were
I
fucking
saw them
sick.
in
Murder
2011.
Dolls.
I still have the T-shirt.
So it was Skindred, Murder Dolls, Steel Panther, Corn, and then Ozzy.
Yeah, that's pretty decent.
That was quite fun. It was in the stands because I was too young to
But
be in the
that was
fucking
still
pit or
called
anything
the
like that. But
O2 in 2010, wasn't it? Or was it
I
still
think
called the
yeah, it was. I
Millennium
think it was
Dome?
the O2. Yeah,
I swear, I'm curious, when was it renamed the O2?
we called it the Millennium Dome because I grew up calling it that. But like, when did the Millennium Dome become the O2? Let's have a fucking look. 2000. Wait, what?
2005, apparently. The name changed in
2005. Yeah.
2005. That sounds about
So
right.
so after 5 years they went fuck it and then sold it to someone else.
Yeah, the Millennium Dome is fucking creepy. Like, it creeps me It reminds me of fucking Blobby Land. You know what I mean? It's just weird. Why does Britain do this weird, cringe, creepy bullshit? Well, I guess you watch Shifty and you'll understand because we got
Mm.
nothing left. So you just come up with someone just comes up with some weird bollocks. And like, yeah, just Sponge Man. Sure, why not?
Oh, what? Didn't the Millennium Dome have like a sport in it that was meant to be the sport of the future?
Probably.
Hold
It,
up, what's it called? There was a there was meant to be a there was meant to be like a sport of the future that came with the Millennium Dome. It wasn't called wiffle ball or some bollocks. Surfball.
sounds fucking sick.
Surfball. Right? The Millennium Game, it was virtually fucking real. Surfball, it was basically so Britain had a dome secretary of dome. Sadly, it was Peter Mandelson. Said surfball would attract people of all ages. It's a 21st century sport. So it's all meant to be virtual reality. So it's not too different to AI bullshit. It's just here's something that looks a little bit cyber.
One thing I've noticed about AI now, first of all, there seems to be like this tacit acceptance. We've gone from it's the new god to yeah, it's kind of like a marketing sort of strategy. Like I've noticed people kind of like slowly climbing down from,
Mm.
but also as the economy's gotten tougher, at least in some spaces, companies are really going toes down into like we are an AI first company, and it's just desperation. They just if they say AI enough times, they'll get slightly more business. But like it's the same problem it's
It's a
always had
cult.
in it. It's like, yeah, I mean, there's people outside the cult, and they know they have to placate the cult. You know what I mean? It's like
Mm.
I think there's a cynicism. Maybe I'm reading too much into it, but I think there's like a cynicism to it. People just like we need to keep saying AI,
Mm.
otherwise we're going to lose business. We can get more business. We just keep saying AI, AI. So they find every. I mean, this has been going on for a while, but they just like the thing about AI is like using Copilot or Chat GPT to like help you write an email versus actually scripting some like unsupervised machine learning in a database are two completely fucking different things because it's not AI, it's a large language model, it's a fucking technology that can be used in different ways. But they call it all AI. It's like so weird. It's like saying like we use unsupervised machine learning to find different clusters to try and find associations between different diseases and be like we use Copilot to help me write my stupid emails as if they're like in any way the same thing. It's just kind of funny. They have to bring all this shit up because it's all AI, and if they say AI enough times, they'll get more business.
Yeah, things that weren't AI have now become quote unquote AI. It's because, I mean, I've got an article coming out about this in a couple of weeks or so
Because it's trending
called,
now.
yeah.
It's just
Well,
marketing. It's a marketing term.
AI is a religion, but it's in a religion in the sense of a cult because capitalism is a cult,
But
where it's
in a
like
way,
anything can be subsumed into it. Everything is just designed to reproduce the cult. I mean, anything can be fucking AI. It doesn't matter how you think about it. It's just AI just means it just
yeah,
means
because it's
it
just a
means that you are
marketing
indebted to feed the fucking thing.
term.
It's always been a marketing term.
Yeah, I
Like
know,
neural networks
but there
were
were
originally coined to not be AI.
But there were a lot of. I think it's less of a cult in that there were people who used to believe that we were creating God, or that
Mm.
someone else was creating. Sam Altman probably still believes all this fucking bullshit, and all those people, right? They're still
Yeah,
like
he's paid to
well
believe
in
it.
the sort of inner circle of cult. But there's people outside of that who are like, oh, this guy, he's going to make the new God, and have now climbed down to the fact that like, oh, it's really just these new technologies and AI is just kind of this marketing term. I feel like it's kind of settled itself down. It's wound
Mm.
its neck in a little bit, but not. But like they still have to placate the cult because it makes them money.
Yeah, the bubble will eventually burst, but I don't think it's going to get rid of most of it because what so-called AI does do, LLMs, is it accelerates the production of digital objects that allow you to justify certain outcomes. So, like, for example, AI, quote unquote, is being used to sort through universal credit applications. It's called whitemail, the thing they're using. But it's going to be used to sort through. So Palantir in the US use it to sort out people's applications against. So basically, if you've had an accident or you need like some healthcare and you apply for it for your insurance and your insurance says no, you can appeal that, but Palantir run the system that sort the appeals out so they can be denied quicker. And basically, what it does, it produces a little bit of text or an object, like a justification or a bit of data or a spreadsheet that says you can't get the thing that you've asked for. And so, what AI is going to do is just accelerate the process of institutionalized cruelty. It's a form of class warfare. I mean, they're using it for therapy now. I mean, chatbots have always been used for therapy, but the reason why they're using chatbots for things more and more is because most people's jobs in email bullshit has basically been reduced to being a chatbot. But
Yeah,
you,
that's
as a
a
human
really good
being,
point.
can't.
Like
Yeah,
the reason that AI's like ChatGPT or Copilot is useful, helps productivity of a lot of corporate workers is because a lot of our job is just slop generation,
like
slides,
quite
bio,
literally. And
emails,
you're saying see me
messages.
and you and a chatbot. We can't work all the time, right? A chatbot can work all the time, and as Marx points out in Capital Volume 1, one of the main things about the class struggle is determining the length of the working day. It's why we needed such a big movement to get the weekends, to get children not being fucking working all the time. And this struggle over the
There's a
working
great story
day,
about that. You know, I think it
yeah.
was in New Zealand. Like it was in New Zealand. There was the dock worker who
Mm,
was like, hired or whatever, or he started this thing, and he started the whole. You get 7 hours of work, 7 hours of rest, 7 hours of sleep. Does that add up? Or is it eight?
it
Wait,
was a
8. Yeah, 8 hours of work, 8 hours of rest, 8 hours of sleep. And if anyone was caught working past that hour, they would get shoved off the dock into the sea.
good. Don't need scabs.
Yeah. But yeah, no,
Over
I
to
mean,
you, Nottingham,
what, Nottingham Uni or Nottingham
the city.
just
It's
city
this
in
no
general?
thing from it's all thing from the miners' strike. Went back to
All right.
work.
But anyway, we
Stupid
should get
mods.
back. We
Yeah.
should get back on Shifty. Um. So yeah, no, because I was saying before, I really enjoyed the end of it, like that. I've
Mm,
got nothing left bit, if you will. I found I didn't know about the Camelford poisoning thing, the water poisoning. I think it's in the
mm,
third or fourth episode that like basically the water got they were I think they were about to privatize the water or they
mm.
already privatized it and they didn't want to make it look like a problem, so they just basically there all these people getting fucking ill and like losing their shit and all these animals were dying, and so they dispatched a sort of dame, a sort of scientist of metabolism science or something, to tell everyone that it was just anxiety, and it apparently is the biggest mass poisoning in British history. It was aluminium sulfate or something, I think, that was turning into sulfuric acid and then stripping all kinds of chemicals off the inside of the pipes. And there's still people suffering from like Alzheimer's and shit from it today. And yeah, they just kept it all on the hush hush and tried to tell people it was just their own anxiety.
Why are you trying to talk Britain down, Archie? That's not very patriotic. I mean, are you
No.
woke? Are you saying? Are you... Oh, sorry. Back in my day, by which I mean apparently for like 30, 40 years ago, we didn't mind if we had sulfuric acid stripping all of the heavy metals from our pipes. We
Yeah,
dealt with
I
it,
love
and when
heavy
we didn't
metal,
do it,
man.
yeah, it's a thing of like politicians just simply not listening to anyone. They don't need to listen to anyone anymore because they've got there's they're not. They're only really scared of what's in their phones, what the papers say. And yes,
Yeah,
the fact that they hid this poisoning so that it wouldn't scare the city. And of course, the city as an institution existed for a thousand years at this point. It literally defines what we say by time immemorial. I mean, it's a satanic entity. But it was a really good example. I never knew about that poisoning
you say
before. It is,
satanic entity.
yeah, it's not in a good way. But what I find interesting actually about how Curtis puts these documentaries together is it really shows you how we film more things now, but in terms of quality, like filming something was a lot more strenuous back then.
Yeah,
But they were filming things that we would simply that wouldn't be you couldn't make them today because of the anti-woke rights. Like for example, they like the films about water pollution. Like they don't like the sort of stuff about like how much shit's in the rivers these days just gets buried.
yeah,
Sometimes because it's not recorded, sometimes because it's just drowned in the rest of the noise. And even also like they mention I mean Curtis puts in one clip at one point of a man playing piano talking about his rather sort of droll life. And he says
yeah,
this man is being interviewed for a documentary about unhappiness.
yeah. I kind of thought that we don't really have that anymore.
We have mental health. We don't have unhappiness. We replace it with that.
Yeah, yeah. No, they
Like,
don't. They don't. Oh well, he must have a chemical imbalance in his brain.
yeah,
Like
like
now, we
oh,
just go on the
he's got mental health,
SSRIs.
which is like a separate thing. Mental health is something every like someone else has. But if we spoke about unhappiness, that'd be something that kind of everyone has.
Yeah, yeah. No, it is interesting. But another thing I noticed is if you know a lot of the footage is quite like you see. I feel like today because we're used to filming ourselves a lot more. Because there's a lot more footage now, but a lot more footage is curated. Like a lot more footage is, I kind of a lot of my stories are quite similar to what the sort of thing that you see in the Adam Curtis documentary. It's just me going, oh, that stuff. I'm just recording it. But there's most of the culture is you have to kind of curate the thing because people want to curate the image of themselves online more and more. So it means you kind of see less. You wouldn't see as I think as much kind of like general authentic stuff. Although I mean, this gets into the whole conversation of authenticity, which I can't really be asked to have. But
Well,
do you know
the
what I mean?
barrier breaks down because people act online, but they don't know whether they're acting online or offline all the time because they're being recorded all the time. They're producing
Yeah,
data all the time, even if they're not doing it for socials. Someone should write a book about this. But in terms of like the amount of footage, I mean, it reminds me a little bit of. I mean, growing up, do you remember You've Been Framed?
yeah, I remember that. I used to love
You
it.
would send a
I
you would
only
send
liked
a
the Dawn French
video.
era. By the time it was Harry Hill, I was out. But
Yeah,
I loved it. It was
you
my
just
favorite show
you
in the Dawn
send
French era.
if you get £500, listeners, if you don't remember, for a video of like you falling over, that might be
Yeah,
like 20 seconds long. Whereas now, you wouldn't, these days, if you'd get big enough, you'd post that video, you'd
yeah.
then make that into a brand, you'd then partner with a PR firm, they would make a cryptocurrency based on that. You would get celebrities to pump loads of money into that, and then as soon as other people put loads of their money into your cryptocurrency, because it's very valuable, you would then sell all your stock in that, and then the cryptocurrency value would be reduced to zero, and all the money that little people put into it would be then transferred into your bank account in real money, and then you'd leg it. It's a lot more complicated than just £500 and Dawn Frint says, "Oh, that's quite funny." Yeah.
This is the like this is who predicted that the financialization of everything would come to this. Like you usually just think of like the absurdity being like the CDOs that collapsed the housing market. We thought that was when it was like at its peak, or like the but like now it's like, or like these ridiculous financial service things that people don't even understand. But it's like no, now it's like what you described. Have a viral moment, turn it into a viral crypto pump and dump scheme, and then like it's just like
CDOs are the bygone era. So listen,
I know.
CDOs is
How
basically
quaint.
when
How quaint the
yeah.
CDO.
Well, the CDO is basically collateralized debt obligation, or the most famous one is a mortgage-backed security, which is basically where every time you get into debt, every time you take a loan, that debt can be sold, and then the person that buys that will be like, okay, when I buy that, I'm basically placing a bet with my own money by buying it that you will pay back that debt, and therefore with interest as well, I will get more money. So I'm financializing the future of the person who's paying that debt. And so what they used to do is take loads of people's mortgages, because people tend to pay their mortgages because they need housing, and then they'll buy them together, and then that's an easy thing to make a bet on because you spread the bet. Most people pay their mortgages, it's fine. But then they gave mortgages to people that couldn't pay it or wouldn't pay it, and they bundled them together and sold them as the same thing. So a lot of people lost those bets. A lot of people bet on people winning those bets who lost that bet as well.
Yeah,
Then it
that's the
all
thing.
chained and
That was
collapsed.
the other thing. They found ways of reselling it over and over and over
Yeah.
again. So, like, someone takes out a mortgage-backed security, and then, like, they would then take out an insurance on that. You could take out insurance on somebody else's mortgage-backed security, as if, like, if Adam bought a car and took out insurance on his car, I could also take out insurance on his car, and if he crashed the car, I would like also get the payout. There's basically like shit like that where they were just multiplying, finding ways of basically multiplying all of these bets on people's debt, and had convinced themselves that if you package enough shit debt together, it will be fine. That's what the like collateralized aspect of it is. And then they'll go to a ratings agency and say, here's a steaming pile of human shit. Can you please rate this? And the ratings agency, that's the best, brilliant AAA rating, because they knew if they didn't, they would go to the one next door. And if you want to understand why a lot of weed THC percentages reported now seem to be ridiculous, it's the same fucking thing. Because if that lab doesn't test them at 35% THC, the next one will. A lot of the police are testing this shit, and it's coming out like 15%. Sorry, that's a bit of a tangent, but it's just it's well, interesting the parallels between the ratings agencies and the THC labs of today.
Well, obviously, yeah, this sort of stuff collapsed the global economy, so we're not doing it anymore with housing. What we're doing it with now is takeaways.
Takeaways.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So if you have like Klarna, and, every time you use like Klarna, like something that you pay back like small purchases like ASOS or fucking Justy on a payment plan with Klarna, that creates little micro debts, and those micro debts can be packaged together into other debts with people who need to take these ones out because they're kind of like payday loans and are very precarious, and if they lose their job they can't pay it anymore. So essentially what they've created is thousands of more of these collateralized debt obligations, these bets, for when you order a takeaway. Which, when you order a takeaway these days, is, I can't remember who said the phrase, but it's when you get a taxi for your fucking burrito. Now, of course, the job market is very bad.
You haven't considered something in this equation. I'm really hungover and like I really need a burrito right now.
Well, I'm not saying don't order a taxi for your burrito. I'm saying the financialization of it is clearly leading to a big fuck off bubble that will collapse.
No, absolutely,
Yeah.
because that yeah, I mean, yeah, it's the fun, and this is a good thing. If you watch Shifty, you can kind of understand how this transformation kicks off. When it's like we don't, like Adam's been saying, we don't. What is Britain? We don't really. There isn't really anything
There's
anymore.
no point.
What is it? What do we make? What do we do? What's the point of us? We're not empire anymore. It's not even good to do that. So it's like, well, let's just turn everything into bets on other stuff and whatever. It's just bollocks. It's just bollocks, isn't it? It's just a bunch of fucking bollocks. Although one other aspect of film we haven't talked about the documentary, which I thought was really good. I liked like how it covers like the communities in Brixton. Like you've got some good like reggae, got some good like footage of like Rastas kind of skanking to culture. He opens up with a yellow man zoga zong zoga zong. Talks about the way that it also like talks quite starkly and clearly about how does the right get people to vote for them? Racism. Every time, it's like that's and you can say that's a remnant of empire. Like, how did we fucking rule half the world? We would just find, those guys are like this and those guys are like that. I bet we can make them fucking hate each other while we administer the region. We'll just divide it up into like random bits that don't make any sense and like bring back the caste system in India. You know what I mean? It's that's something we've learned, and we then turn that inwards, right? The boomerang comes back around, and they go, "How are you going to win this election?" I've got an idea. racism. And it does talk a lot about. I wasn't aware of like maybe I was, but it's like the difference between numbers and seeing the kind of actual, up in person. They're aware of all the like racist attacks. It covers a lot of violence against South Asians. And in the areas like I didn't realize there were so many like riots around the northeast in like the late '80s and like early '90s, whatever. It covers the Brixton riots, obviously. It covers poll tax. Like, so I think it does quite a good job, at least, of like giving a kind of snapshot of some of these issues.
Yeah, the history of the Asian Youth Brigades in particular, it's not really covered as much as I'd like in this documentary, but there are some really good histories. Actually, on Tribune magazine, Taj Ali's really good at it. I mean, there were a lot of community self-defense brigades. So one of them is interviewed in the documentary, particularly around Southall, where the National Fronts, what would then become the EDL, were attacking Asian businesses, and they did unite to fucking defend themselves. These days, it'd probably be fucking prescribed, but
Immediately
we saw
regarded as a
this.
terrorist group, yeah.
I mean, we saw this with like past on action, but also just saw community response to these things with last summer. There were pogroms in England last night. There were racial checkpoints started up by fucking racist whites forming racial checkpoints in places. They're not. Yes, they are left behind, but they're also radicalized into fascism. And I'm not going to shed a fucking tear for them. And I even remember, some of that when they gave out that menu, there are going to be some in London. Obviously, none of them showed up in fucking London. A very few showed up in Walthamstow, where there were these brigades coming together to for community self-defense because they've seen it. I mean, there's a reason why it's called Al-Sab Ali Park in fucking Whitechapel. He was murdered in a racist attack, and these communities had come together to defend themselves against white Anglo-fascism, which might sort of mean white and Anglo-fascism is kind of together. It's more or less it's kind of hard to separate the two, and so I do appreciate him putting. I wish he put more in. But I think it is worth him highlighting that the Asian youth movements were exceptional at defending themselves. Yeah, and in places like Southall, I mean, you think about the murder of activists by the police as well. For example, Blair Peach, a very famous activist who was murdered by the police. It is a time in Britain in which fundamentally we're not really educated about. Even stuff like the New Cross fire, isn't really spoken about.
No, definitely. I mean, that's the thing. It's like I kind of feel like I know about this stuff, but then you see all the footage of it, and you're like, "Fuck!" Like, it's a lot more significant than it was in my memory, or like my sort of vague idea of it. And that's me being an insufferable woke lefty who actually tries to learn about history and like what happened and what's going on. But that it was some of it was like I was like fucking hell, But also another bit that I enjoyed about it was all the yuppie shots, like all the shots of yuppies getting their cars towed and stuff. Like
the drunk ones being like, "Yeah, I don't believe in cars being towed, mate."
Oh yeah, no. There was the one guy who said, "Oh God." Like he dug through the archive some absolute premium wankers. Like there was one guy who's getting his car towed. It actually has a hydraulic suspension system, and it's going to be damaged. It's going to be damaged by it. And the guy says, "Well, he's told me that it's the rare time you're like fucking rooting for the like traffic cops or whatever, the people towing cars." He's like, well, he's told me that if there's any damage, there won't be any damage, and if there is any damage, it's your right to be compensated for that. He says, I don't believe in rights. I think rights are for ignorant people.
Oh God, yeah, it's like it was written by fucking Stephen Moffat and Mark Gatiss.
Yeah, it just like you couldn't have made yourself. There's a camera pointing at you, but that's the thing. Some people from these kinds of in these situations just have no self-awareness of how much of an absolute fucking arse tit they fucking appear to the rest of the world.
It just reminds me of like watching Road Wars as a kid because I just want to think it all fucking on, and occasionally you see someone like you're not giving a good argument here. Just leg it, man. Just leg it. Like you've been caught. Just like. Shut the fuck up Friday.
Yeah.
Just get a bus card, call out the Green and Black Cross. Probably not because you've been doing drunk driving. That case, yeah. It's a fair cop, not in the sense that you should be arrested, but in the sense that you have been.
And then there's the one conflicting clip where you're like, okay, there's a point here, but there's like a woman saying, yeah, and she's actually got a point. I mean, she's probably pissed and probably shouldn't be driving, or
Mm,
whatever. But she's like, yeah, but how, it's not safe for me. How am I supposed to go home
that is
alone or
true.
whatever? And I'm thinking like that is a point, but also you're probably wankered, so you're not going home safely if you're driving and also endangering other people. But the one of the police officers is a woman and says, "Well, I'm a woman as well." And she goes, "Yeah, but you're a police officer." She goes, "Yes, but I go home myself and I carry this with me. It's a panic alarm," and basically like tells her to get a rape alarm. And it's just like, yeah, it's just
One of the good
I know,
clips
I know
actually.
you're at risk of being raped as a woman at night in the city, but like you can, it's up. It's really on you, right? It's not up to us to like try and change society as that is the case. It's all on you to just carry a loud alarm. We're not going to provide safe fucking public transport for everyone at night. Just carry a fucking alarm. And if you do get raped, you can come and report it to the police, where we'll berate you and call you a fucking liar because we're scum.
It reminds me
All
well.
right,
I mean,
hang
one
on
of
a
the
sec. I'll be
best.
back in a sec. I just got to go strip search some fucking kids.
God, I mean, one of the clips they show as well is from the Reclaim the Street marches, Reclaim the Night marches. I think they're also called in Yorkshire, following the Peter Sutcliffe, the Yorkshire Ripper.
Yeah.
Complete failure of the police. I mean, first because they just, I mean, the less dead as they're known, they just completely hate sex workers, and so are
Yeah.
fine with them just being fucking murdered. And it is. I mean, I think it's valuable as well because social resistance, social revolt, protest is always flattened in something digestible to the ruling class. I mean, so on the day that Palestine Action was prescribed, at least the vote was passed in the Commons, people were celebrating the suffragettes,
Yeah.
the people who invented letter bombs.
Well, I made a joke because
Which not a critique of suffragettes, by the way, just saying, but
no,
like they
I know
were doing
they
domestic
were.
terrorism.
Yeah, I mean, and I don't think they kill anyone. I think they engaged in property damage, but I don't know if they killed.
They did a few. I don't know if they killed anyone. They did a few bombings. They whipped Winston Churchill. The
Property damage
suffragettes were,
is
yeah. The
considered mass property damage is considered terrorism anyway because of what the
so
IRA did in the 90s.
suffragism was a very wide movement. I mean, even the Pankhurst family was split. So,
Yeah,
what's the name? Adela Pankhurst was a communist, moved to Australia, became a founding fascist. Christabel and Emmeline were radicals, but at the same time, they they split themselves off from the women's cause in Ireland and became a kind of nationalist wing of feminism in the UK, essentially saying that we are good British subjects. And then we have the best Pankhurst, the only good Pankhurst in many ways, Sylvia, who remained a communist activist in East London her entire life, and also was one of the people behind the publishing of the first British black Marxist authors in history of the UK and the literary scene, and
big
was
up.
very very instrumental in organising the Matchstick Girls strike in Bow, along with I think as well Eleanor Marx. I mean, big up Sylvia. She was a comrade her entire life, whereas the others eventually did fall to fascism and imperialism.
Yeah, I mean, one thing I was thinking is, if people aren't familiar, in London we have the Overground, but it recently got, because the Overground's always been extremely confusing. It's just been
Mm.
one line that's actually like five different lines. They decided to actually give all the different bits different names. And it seems that the naming convention was, let's name these lines after different groups that we've completely fucked over in the past. So, for example, there's the suffragette line. There's the Windrush line, which refers to basically the Windrush generation who came over here to build the NHS and stuff after being kind of sold alive from the colonies and were treated pretty shittily. And then because they didn't really have official papers when they moved over, and any paperwork they did have,
No, they did. They were
the government
burned.
decided to burn all the documents and then start deporting people who had moved here, who were like pensioners who moved here when they were like 5 from Jamaica. Oh, but we renamed an overground line after them. They fucked over the suffragettes, but we named an overground line after them. Then I was like, what is Mildmay? Look it up. Oh, it was a charity-funded AIDS hospital because they completely fucked over everyone who had AIDS by just basically treating it as a plague to wipe out the homosexuals. And some divine godly thing because they're fucking evil. And I don't know. One's called the Lioness line, which is our like women's football team or something. I'm like, when did the government fuck them over? Either they have or they're about to. Trust me.
No, they're just better than the men's team. That's why.
And I was thinking,
And they are really fucking good.
So do you think in 20 years we're going to have a Palestine action line? Maybe it'll take 30 years. I don't know. How many years before we get
Palestine
Palestine
action line. You know what? Rename the Victoria Line the Palestine Action Line. Isn't that the Hammersmith and Palestine Action?
I mean, it's the problem. It's too long, really.
That's a, rename the Lizzie Line the Palestine Action Line.
Yeah. Let's start a petition. Let's get 14 years.
14. Yes, we'll get 2 or 3.
Yeah.
I say that if we
Yeah.
say we get 2 or 3, they can give us 14 to make example.
Yeah. But yeah, okay. So I think we've covered most of Shifty. I don't know what other bits we. Oh, it also covers the story about they find the ruins of like a pilot at the beginning, and it was an RAF pilot, and initially they thought that he was like a sort of lost British hero, but it turns out I can't remember the specifics, but it was some unit where he kind of lost his mind and just led a lot of RAF airmen to their deaths. Do you remember that bit?
Yeah, it's again, it's the constant use of World War II nostalgia. It reminds me a lot of a speech, to be honest, that Tony Benn gave in lead up to the Iraq War, where he says that, look, he reads out the beginning of the UN Charter, which says that, we nations who have seen war cause untold misery in our lifetime have come together to basically stop this. He says that we've just forgotten this. And we have. I mean, in
Yeah.
terms of, not that we could have ever believed it, to be honest, but the kind of framework of post-war, we've had 2 world wars, this is going to destroy us all, we need to come together to stop this, has completely dissipated. It's now just a war of all against all, by which I mean the war of some against all, by which I mean the war of the ruling class against everyone else.
Yeah, and there's another thing brought up in the documentary they talk about. I can't remember who was saying that, Thatcher basically was reviving the Churchillian view
Mm.
of Britain. So it's like the kind of World War Two was like reviving the kind of mythological imperial Britain, and Thatcher was reviving the mythologization, the World War Two mythologization of imperial Britain. So it's kind of, again, like kind of Baudrillard, copy of a copy. Yeah, it's interesting because you even see some of the sort of more progressive movements playing into this World War Two nostalgia. You see the footage where Led by Donkey's got this like World War Two veteran to run over a Cybertruck with a tank to be like, he fought fascism before and I'm fighting again. It's like it's kind of cool, but it's like again, you're rooting it in the World War Two nostalgia that is maybe you're trying to do it to win over fascists. I don't know, but it's still kind of tapping into this nostalgia of Britain. You know what? I had another recent thought about this. I was walking through Croydon. We've talked about. We had an episode talking about Croydon. How it's kind of center of Croydon is a dilapidated shithole, right? It's just empty fucking buildings. And now what they have is facades on a building that has had nothing in it for years and had just a homeless man sleeping outside it for ages until it like caught fire. They've put up this big facade that talks about like the history of Croydon, and it's like you literally just accepting that this is dead and trying to make it into some like sort of museum facade on a just husk of what used to be. Like nostalgia and history and whatever, it's literally just all that is left now to sort of vulturize.
Well, it's not that we can't do anything, it's that we won't because they don't believe anything else is possible. Or rather, when anything else is possible, they'll put all their effort into killing it.
Yeah, exactly.
Because that's not allowed, that's rude, that's not us. We can only do what we allow them to do, and what we allow them to do is magic. It's AI, it's imperial nostalgia, it's making sure the spectator garden party likes us. And they have no ideas, they have no real mandate anymore. And so either, well, it's socialism or barbarism.
Well, the only World War Two nostalgia I would 100% invoke is Dig for Victory. 100% Dig for Victory.
Mm.
We could bring, I'm happy to bring that back, but let's connect it even further with, let's talk about the diggers and stuff, and let's have a social gardening transformation as part of things. I think that'll be.
Well, the climate isn't going to be fixed. We're not going to solve global warming at this fucking rate. So it's basically about adaptation and
Yeah.
slowing the damage. And part of that would require agricultural reform, because otherwise Britain's just going to be a complete parasite on trade flows in the global south, producing food all year long.
And yeah.
And yeah.
And also, like, that's the trouble. Capitalism drives agriculture towards, stuff it needs to be mechanized so it's easy to harvest. So it's big fields of the same crop that you can get a combine harvester in. That's the only thing that economically makes sense. But that, of course, makes it extremely vulnerable. In order to make something resilient, you need to have a plethora of different things. Because what if the sun kills that and the water kills that, and that needs to survive? You need to not have it all so centralized and have everything bet on one. And the other problem is, and this is getting into my kind of, you know. Producing food does not need to be a chore. Many people garden voluntarily, and I know it's just me because I'm a big gardener, because it's fucking satisfying. If you want to talk about mental health or like not being unhappy, that's why are we taking like producing your own food, which is an incredibly satisfying thing to do, that's really good for a lot of people's mental health who are into it, and saying, oh no, we have to be productive with it. It's like, no, you don't. Think about how many people who have the honor of actually having an allotment spend fucking hours out there having a great fucking time. If you look at these private allotments, like root allotments now, it's fucking ludicrously expensive. You could argue it's a sort of middle class yuppie endeavor because it's not accessible to most people. You need the free time to do it. You need a car to get there, and you need to be able to pay a lot of money. It's much cheaper to just go to the supermarket. But if there was a genuine movement to essentially reclaim the commons for the purposes of communally gardening and building something up, then that genuinely would be a good move, although a small one, but also a way of resisting climate change and potentially building better communal ties.
What we should just do is just turn Zone 1 to a big fucking allotment.
Yeah. We should turn all of Canary Wharf into big vertical farms. Do you know how much
Guildhall should be an allotment.
Give me one of them tall fucking glass penises and I'll turn it into a giant vertical farm, mate. Collect water at the top. It runs down. You could have like aquaponics. You could have fucking aquaponics with like ponds of fish in the center. Their shit would fertilize the crops. In darker spaces, you could grow mushrooms. So much you could do. Turn Canary Wharf into a giant series of communally owned vertical farms. If I could write fiction, I'd write a fictional book about that happening. But I can't, so I won't ever do that.
Yeah, but what stockholders? That's very selfish, Archie.
Yeah, I mean...
But yeah. I mean, Shifty ends on a good point that... I mean, it ends on a fucking confusing point, which is either it's nostalgia trying to feed us back into the same cycle of control, or collectively people need to shed the atomization of Thatcherism and then just reassert the fundamental origins of power, which is in collective force. And otherwise, we're just kind of kept in someone else's nightmare.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like, I don't know, like there's nostalgia because I feel like nostalgia can often be used to like you say, feed you back into control. Remember this and it was like that or whatever. But I do feel like the way that the nostalgia is done in Shifty, it's done in a deliberate way to kind of carry you through in a way that's like, you think, oh, wasn't it better back then? It's like, no, didn't you just see that fucking Sikh guy getting his head kicked in? Didn't you just see the Brixton riots? I don't think it's not trying to do this kind of reactionary, rosy view of the past. It's kind of a movie that is both nostalgia inducing, but about the kind of the danger of nostalgia in a way.
Do you know about the history of nostalgia?
Not really, no.
Well, it was first coined by a Swiss doctor in the 1600s as a kind of illness. It means past pain, but it was mostly diagnosed in the Napoleonic era. So having a standing army, an army which your country just has on reserve, basically on retainer, is very new. Previously, it was just mostly mercenaries. And so when the French Revolutionary Army happened, they were fighting for the nation, but really people didn't see themselves as a nation. They saw that they lived in these villages. They lived here. So, where do you come from? I come from here. And it's just a village they lived in. Whereas, really, the idea of fighting for a nation rather than fighting for a patch of land distant from anywhere else was in a response to this outbreak of nostalgia. People going, why am I over in Russia fighting for Napoleon when I'm not from this entity called France? What is that? It's an abstraction. And the nostalgia can be something which isn't just reactionary. I mean, the pathologization of nostalgia as an illness, I think, testifies to this. We think of something like, so listeners, in the 1800s, there was a condition called drapetomania. Now, what's drapetomania mean? It's otherwise known as runaway slave syndrome. And this American doctor came up with the idea of this horrific illness striking down slaves where they were running away from their masters. And, the idea of satanic babbling of maroon fugitive slaves in the southern United States, or even in Haiti, who then organised to conduct the first successful slave revolution in human history, for which they have still never, not been given their due for actually liberating themselves, unless being punished by it by the French government. And nostalgia can be a good thing to remember that things weren't always this way and didn't have to be this way. And so I think there is a potential revolutionary use of nostalgia where we didn't need all this shit.
Yeah, I also think there's something clarifying in, like we said earlier, you spoke brilliantly the absurdity of a viral moment becoming somehow a cryptographic financial asset and pump and dump scam. But as I said before, Shifty shows you how we got there. It can sometimes help you figure out how we got somewhere. That gives you a better idea of where we can go, rather than being kind of trapped in this current empty moment and feeling like, well, it's always been like this. It has to always be like this.
Yeah, we don't have to always live in the fucking Millennium Dome.
Yeah, with the weird fucking bullshit. And
we do live in the Millennium Dome. We don't have to live there.
We don't have to live in the Millennium Dome. We don't have to be surrounded by weird fucking foam shit. And on that note, thank you for listening to Pub Goth Transmission. For the Instructable, I'm just going to show you some carrots that I harvested today that look kind of freakish and weird, but they're actually delicious.
They've got 2 legs, double the amount of carrots. Come on.
More than 2, mate. These carrots might be kind of fucked up, but they came out better than the last ones. Overall, I'm pretty happy with this haul, to be honest. She did chop the fucking ends off. Look at that fucking bush. There you go. Welcome to the freak show of carrots. Still edible. And as fresh as you can get.